Yo, 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 how are we all going?
I'm pretty good, thank you.
That's very good to hear. That is very good here. Well, welcome to YC, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Peter, and I'm one of the Grade 8 Life Group leaders, and I'm so thrilled and happy to be here this morning. But just being a bit curious, I just want to know what some of your answers were. Like, what's the hardest training / practice you have ever done? Yes?
Doing
One push-up. One push-up, okay, yes. Ballet, yes, pointing those toes are hard. Anyone else? Yes?
When I was little, it used to be
Catching the ball when you were little, yes. One more, anyone else? Yes? Triathlon, yes, that is very hard. Well, I want to start off with a confession and a story. You see, I once knew a little boy, a 14-year-old boy who had a dream. You see, he had a dream and a goal. You see, this 14-year-old boy, he went to a pretty cool school called City Point Christian College. And you see, this 14-year-old boy, his name was Peter Sue. Yes. You see, I had a goal and a dream to come first in the 100 meters sprint. Yes, I had a goal to come first in the 100-meter sprint. But not only that, but my goal was to get the fastest time there was in the grade. So when I had this goal, I signed up to this little thing called the athletics training. Yes, I put my name down and I thought I was magically going to get faster because I heard from a word of mouth that if you sign up to this thing called the athletics training, you're just going to somehow get faster. But guess what? I was wrong. You see, I thought it was easy. I thought it was going to be a breeze in the park, but I was wrong too. You see, we had training every Tuesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, and Thursday morning. And I remember doing the hardest training session of my life on that Wednesday afternoon. It was from 1 o'clock to 3. And basically, we had to do a circuit training. If you don't know what a circuit training is, pretty much you go around and you do some different exercise. And at first, I thought it would be a really chilled circuit training, really small, but I was wrong too. They made us do 400 meters of a circuit training. So you had to run a whole oval while doing circuit training. So you run 100 meters, do 10 push-ups, run another 100 meters, do 20 burpees, run another 100 meters, do some sit-ups, and then sprint through, and then you get a little bit of a break. And not only that, but the minimum times that we had to do it was 12. So we had to do 12 laps of the oval from 1 o'clock to 3. So that was your finishing time. And let me tell you something, it was brutal. It was the worst. It was death. And I was like, bro, this sucks. This sucks. And to this day, this has been the hardest training session I have ever done in my life. And fast forward after the season, I was ready to run. And guess what? I ended up coming first in the 100 meters. Yes, I ended up coming first in the 100 meters. However, in my heat, because I went to the finals, I got smoked by a state player. So I didn't really win. I just won in my heat. And I bet many of you guys are probably wondering, like, Peter, bro, what's the point of your story? And I just want to say, well, firstly, it's about me telling you guys about my glory days. Like, come on. It was a fine time to be alive. A 14-year-old Peter Sue, you will want to be a Peter Sue when you were 14 years old. But secondly is I just wanted to rant on you guys about how till this day I'm still salty about losing to that state player because he just came out of nowhere and smoked everyone. I was like, bro, that's not fair. But lastly is like, I find it amazing that we live in a generation where we neglect the importance of both preparation and training. You see, we neglect this importance of training and preparation. You see, we are a generation that just wants to do, go. You see, we tend to want to play that soccer game without any training or any practice, or we want to go into that exam with any studying, or we want to go to that drama rehearsal or presentation without any rehearsal. You see, we live in a generation where we neglect the importance of practice and training. Yeah, I bet many of you guys are probably wondering why you're losing this battle that you're fighting. Because it baffles me how when we don't practice or when we don't train and we get into this situation where we're presented with the battle, we lose, and we go, why? Why? You see, we recently just finished the How to Pray series, Teach Us How to Pray series. And one of the main reasons on why we unpack the Lord's Prayer is because we can equip you and we can train you into becoming prayer warriors so that when times of hardship and things happen, you guys can stand firm and pray those prayers. Because when a battle presents itself, you can stand firm and pray the Lord's Prayer that Jesus teaches us to do. You see, my message this morning is all about training and practices and fighting battles. So the title of my message this morning is called This is Only Your Training Ground. This is only your training ground. You see, we're going to start off by reading a quick story of a man that God trains up. That God trains up in his training ground, and because of that, he becomes a future king of Israel. And his name was David. So if you have your Bibles, why don't you turn to 1 Samuel 16, 10, verse 13. But before we read, I just want to give you a little bit of a context. So basically, Saul was a king at the time, and he was ruling all of Israel, but then God was like, nah, fam, you ain't doing great. So he's like, I'm going to find a new king. So God talks to this prophet named Samuel, and he says to Samuel, I want you to find the future king of Israel. So Samuel goes around finding people that are worthy, and he meets this guy named Jesse. And Jesse has 8 sons, and this is where the story kicks off. So 1 Samuel 16, 10, verse 13. So Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. But Samuel said to him, the Lord has not chosen these. So he asked Jesse, are these all the sons you have? There is still the youngest, Jesse answered. He is tending sheep. Everyone say sheep. Sheep. Good. And then Samuel said, send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives. So he sent for him and he brought him in. He was glowing with health and he had a fine experience and handsome features. Damn, David. Then the Lord said, rise and anoint him. This is the one. So Samuel took the horn of the oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. You see, what I love about this story is it's mentioned in the Bible, but it's a story that we all know. It's a story that we all, read, and preachers have preached about it. But you see, if you unpack the life of David, you can slowly but surely see that in his training ground, God was training him up for not only to become the future king of Israel, but for future battles that he had to fight. I'm going to say that again. If you unpack the life of David, you can see that God was training him up not only to become king of Israel, but for future battles that he had to fight. And I bet many of you guys are probably wondering, Peter, bro, what's the point of your sermon? Why are you preaching this message? Why? How does the life of David resonate with me this morning? Why are you preaching on this message? Out of all the message you can preach about, you preach on this. And if I'm being honest with you, I just feel in my heart when I was preparing this message that there are people in this room, you're here fighting a battle that many people don't know. Or you're in this room and you're sitting here and you're crying out to God, why? Why, God? Why is this happening to me? Why am I in this season that's so uncomfortable? Why is this situation that I'm in so hard? You see, I feel like there are many people in this room, you're going through the same thing as David. We're going to unpack that later. But I just want to give you encouragement that through this, God is training you up for future battles to fight. And believe me, I've been in the same situations. I have lost many friends. I have many hard breakups in my life, and I have experienced many hardship upon my life. But however, looking back on it now, I can see that God was preparing and training me in to fight future battles that I had to fight. And I'm so glad some of them happened. And it sucks. Believe me, it sucks. I've been through it and it sucks. And it's uncomfortable and it brings us discomfort. However, it's worth it in the end. As we're talking about discomfort, that comes to my first point. You see, training, in your training ground, there will be discomfort. Everyone say discomfort. That's it. In your training ground, there will be discomfort. You see, David had to go through discomfort. Like, firstly, he had to look after sheep. He had to look after sheep. And if you didn't know, sheep aren't very fun to look at. Like, who here has been to a farm and like just watched sheep? Like, they're not very fun to look at, right? Like, all they do is pretty much like eat some grass, hop off, run, eat some grass, look around, hop again, eat some grass and go, bah. Like, bro, like, sheep aren't very fun to look at, right? They're very boring. I bet David would have been so bored. He would have been bored out of his tears. Imagine your full-time job was to watch sheep. Imagine for 8 hours you just watch sheep. Like, that would be so uncomfortable and I will hate it. And secondly, David had to fight off beasts. He had to fight off lions and he had to fight off bears because he had to protect his sheep. Imagine this, all right? You're in a field. You're looking after sheep and this bear just starts running at you. Like, how terrifying would that be? Like, David had to fight off beasts and he had to like kill him. See, David went through discomfort. But through this training, God was preparing him for future battles because if you didn't know, later in the story, David actually slays Goliath because of it. And if you're sitting here this morning and you're thinking like, why is this happening to me? Why is school so hard? Like, I'm so glad the term is over. You know, this term has just been so hard. Like, I'm just over it. Or maybe you're sitting here, you'll be like, yeah, just like my friendship group is it's just so toxic and I just hate being in my friendship groups. Or maybe you're in a relationship and all you're feeling is drained and whatnot. Or you just experienced a breakup and you're just like, this sucks, it hurts. Why is this happening to me? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying God puts you guys in those situations. It's because the sin entered the world and that's when those things happen. But because by the grace of God, He will help you go through it. And through this, He will make something amazing out of it. That's why He is training you right now for future battles to fight. Because if you feel like these friends are really being annoying and really giving you a hard time, don't you think that God is trying to teach you patience and understanding? Maybe you're at a part-time job and you feel like your boss is really hard on you. Maybe God is trying to train you up to have a good work ethic. Maybe you just had a really bad breakup and then you feel like you've been treated not so nice, but maybe God is trying to train you up into letting you know what a future husband and a future wife should treat you like. I don't know what your situation or your circumstance is here this morning, but maybe through this training ground, God is training you into a future battle to fight. Because in James 1:2-4, he says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Everyone say, not lacking anything. I'm going to say it like you mean it. Not lacking anything. That's good. You see what James is trying to say here? When you go through training, hardship and tribulations, you should know that God is testing your faith in order to make you stronger. Everyone say stronger. Stronger. You see, if you feel like you're in an uncomfortable situation or circumstance in your life, maybe right now God is preparing you, like David, to be stronger and to be ready for future battles that present itself. Because preparation and training brings discomfort. Second point, everyone say second point. See, my second point is training will require trust. Training will require trust. You see, when we go through training and we go through preparation and stuff like that, sometimes God requires us to trust in Him. He wants us to trust in Him even though we don't know what's on the other side. We should trust in Him even though we don't know what's going to happen. We should trust in Him because I find it amazing that whenever it comes to this world, right, we often seek help, right? Like if you're training and you have a coach, or if you have gotten feedback from an assignment from your teachers, we tend to get that program or that advice or that experience and we apply it to our lives because we trust in that person, right? Yeah? Like for example, if a PT says you're going to do this program, you just do it because you trust in him, because he has a degree and he has experience. But what I find amazing is that we tend to trust these people who have experience, who have a degree, who have knowledge, yet we find it hard to trust in God, who is the creator of the universe, all-knowing. He knows about your situation. So if you can trust in these teachers, these coaches, and these trainers so easily, why do we not trust God? Because obviously He knows what's best for you. He knows about your situation that you're in. Because in Proverbs 3, 5, verse 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him and He will make your paths straight. You see, David, back to David, he too had to trust in God. Like he too had to trust in God when he was in the fields watching sheep. And he was so bored that he ended up picking up his harp and he started playing. And he had to trust in God when bears and lions started running at him, and he had to finish them off. He had to trust in God when he was attending sheep while his brothers were out fighting wars. Because if he didn't know, back in the time, attending sheep was a role or a job for a servant. I'm going to say that again. Attending sheep was a job or role for a servant. You see, David was here attending sheep while his brothers were out there doing important and cool jobs. Just imagine you right now. Your parents have given you the worst job in the house. Mine, weeding. I hate weeding, right? Imagine they have just given you the worst chore ever, and then your brothers and sisters get a really cool job. Like, I don't know, feed the dog or something. I don't know. Like, imagine that. David had to trust in God when he was in the fields attending sheep. So if you're here like wondering why you're the only Christian in your school and you feel like there's no one around you and you're just surrounded by non-Christians, or you're in a friendship group where everyone is, gossiping and talking bad about people. Or maybe you're in the locker room and you're wondering why you're with all these boys that just talk about women badly. If you're sitting here this morning, sometimes you've got to trust in God and His process. Because you see, in the end, through all that process and that training, David was able to be elevated to the palace. So my question for you this morning, as I want you to think and ponder on, is, are you going to trust in God just like David did? Because He knows what's best. I remember 2 years ago, I went to ACU for a Bachelor of Education. And let me tell you, that was, that was a pretty dumb decision. Because if you don't know, ACU is all about health and physiotherapy and stuff like that. They don't do education. And I remember going to ACU for education, and one of my course, they said, all right, guys, you have to go on this 3-day camp into the bush. Now, if you know me, I hate the bush. I hate it. And I was like, what? We gotta go? I was like, I do not want to go. It was terrible. They said, you have to go, or else you're not gonna pass. And I was like, fine, I'll go. So I remember complaining all week to my parents. I even complained to my life group. I was like, I don't want to go. Like, come on, we gotta go, like, find our own showers. We gotta go find our own bathrooms, cook our own food, sleep in the bush. Like, we're gonna get muddy and gross. Like, I don't want to go. And I remember even complaining it to Ben Dainton. I was like, Ben, I don't want to go. Why is this happening? But I seek prayer. I was like, can you guys as a life group pray for me? And I still remember this day, the prayer that Rachel Dainton, so Ben's wife, prayed over me. She went along the lines of, Lord, I pray that as Peter goes on this camp, he'll understand why he's placed there. So I was like, oh, damn, that was like heavy. I was like, oh, that's sick. You know, that prayer was just in my heart for a little bit. And then the next week I went on camp, and I remember first day in, terrible, raining, muddy, gross, and it was freezing out in the bush. And I was like just in my bed, I was like, why is this happening? I don't like camp. And I remember I was just like having the worst mindset ever. Then the second day came, it was okay, it cleared up, but like it was still bad. Like I was like, why do I have to cook my own food and find my own bathroom? It was the worst. However, nighttime came, and everyone's like ready to go to bed. Everyone's in bed. I remember getting ready for bed. And then one of the biggest guys in our group, his name was Douglas, and he plays national rugby league, and he's like massive, and he stands over me like this, and he goes, "Oi, Peter," and I'm like, "Yes." I was like, "What do you want? Did I do something?" He goes, "Peter, I need to go to the bathroom. I'm scared. Can you come with me?" I was like, "Sure, okay." So we both got our little torches, and we went to the bush to find the bathroom. And then I was just like, what is even happening? And I remember the funniest thing ever. Well, not funny, it's like, it was crazy. He was in the bathroom, and I was out there with my torch, and I just hear, "Hey, Peter." I was like, "Yeah, Doug?" He's like, "Oi." He was like, "Oi, yo, bro, you a Christian?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, yeah, you a Christian, bro?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am. Are you?" And he goes, Yeah, I think so, kind of. And then through that, we started talking about faith, and we started talking about, faith and testimonies. And after he was done, we sat down at the campfire. It was like kind of put out for campfire. It was just us two, and the smoke was coming up, and we just started talking. And we started talking about his faith journey. We started talking about his testimony. And it was amazing. And he told me about the story, how he came to Christ through the song Oceans. And he loves that song. And he's struggling at the moment because he both wants to love God, but he also has all these worldly desires like rugby and stuff like that. And he's just feeling convicted, and he's on the fence. And we were talking for like an hour about faith. And then afterwards, I was like, "Bro, I need to go to bed because I'm tired." So I got ready for bed, and I was coming back. The craziest thing happened. I come back to him at the fire with hands like this, praying to God with the song Oceans playing in the background. Now, like every time I think of that, it's been 2 years since that incident happened, and I remember every single detail. Every single detail. I go, how on earth did that happen? How did our world clash? Like, how did that happen? You see, I didn't know what camp was going to bring. I just had to trust in God and his process. You see, it's the craziest story ever. You see, you might not know where you are or what your situation or what's on the other side, but God does know. And God wants you to trust him. And through this trust, he'll train you for future battles. Last point. Everyone say last point. Victory. Victory. You see, David, he experienced victory. Why? Because when he was in the fields looking after sheep, he picked up his harp and he started playing. And he got so good that one day King Saul was like, David, you're such a good player. Why don't you come to my palace and play for me? Because you see, I am feeling not well and I love your music. Your music can calm me down. You see, David was elevated from the fields all the way up to the palace. From the fields to the palace. And not only that, when this giant man called Goliath stands against God's people, David picks up a stone, puts it in his sling and goes, God's with me. Knocks him down. Why? It's because when he was in the fields as a young teenager, he saw a lion or a bear coming his way and he was like, I got this. Gets a stone, bang. Knocks those beasts down just like he did with Goliath. And the best and most important part is God was with him every single step of the way. You see, what I love about trainers and PT is they never leave you. You see, they often may be beside you, running with you, or they might be just a few steps behind you, but they will never leave you. They'll never leave you, just like God never left David. When David was in the fields playing, God was with him. When David was taking down the beast, God was with him the whole time. I don't know what God is training you in right now, but just know that He is with you every single step of the way. Deuteronomy 20 verses 4, for the Lord your God is He who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you the victory. And John 16:33, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulations, but take heart, I have overcome the world. I have overcome the world. I have overcome your situation. I have overcome your circumstance. You see, when these seasons and these things come up and present itself, we can have victory because God is with us every single step of the way. However, it's going to take a little bit, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, and it's going to take a little bit of trust. But we can have victory because God is with us every step of the way. And through this, we can win our battles. You see, as I finish this morning, and the band can come, I bet many of you guys are probably wondering, like, it's this really cool message, Peter, but like, why are you telling us this? And I'm going to tell you why this message is so important to me, and why I'm preaching this message now and today. You see, I was supposed to preach this message a year ago. I was supposed to preach this message a year ago. It was on a Friday night. We were doing a series called Battle Ready, and it was on preparation. And I wrote this message, and it was good to go. It was good to go. However, on that Friday, I was sick. And I was super gutted. I was heartbroken. I was like, no, surely not. I was like, no way. This is not happening. I want to preach this message. And I remember in my room practicing, and I just couldn't utter a word because I was just coughing. I was coughing, and I couldn't say anything, so I ended up to pull out. You know, I called Ben. I was like, Ben, yo, bro, I'm just so sick. I can't preach this message. And Ben was like, all good, man. Like, we get it. Things happen. And then Grace took over, and I'm pretty sure she smashed it. And then amazing Ben over here, he texted me a week later. He said, yo, Peter, I hope you're feeling better. But just to remind you, you have this free hit coming up on YC. So feel free to talk about anything I want. And I was like, come on. God, you are good. I'm ready to preach this message. And I remember it was the free hit was on the 22nd of March, on the Sunday. But on the 20th of March, Gateway closed their doors and went online because of COVID-19. And it's been a year and a few days, and I'm preaching this message now. You know why? I realize it's because through it all, God wanted to train me up for this message. He wanted me to trust in Him and His will and His purpose, because every time I open my laptop, I can just see that little Word document that says, this is only your training ground. Every time I go to uni, every time I open it, it's been there for a year and a bit. But you see, God was training me up. He wanted me to trust in Him and His plans and His purposes until I was right to preach this message. You see, YC, I feel like there are many people in this, sitting here this morning. You're about to go to a future battle, or you're experiencing something right now. Maybe a spiritual battle, but I want to let you know, don't stress or worry, because God's got you. He's overcome everything of this world. However, He's also training you in this moment, just like He was training David. Just like He was training David to become king. So are you ready to trust in Him? Are you ready? Why don't we all stand? You see, we're going to sing a song. The band's going to lead us. It's a really powerful song, but it's just got two chorus kind of things. But I want you to sing it. I want you to sing it loud, and I want you to trust in God, because you see, you may be fighting a battle right now, but God's got you, and you may be uncomfortable, and you may feel like you don't want to trust in Him, but it's worth it. We can have victory in Him. So I really encourage you guys to sing this. Thank you, Ben.